Okay, welcome back. I'm now going to review Week 4's action from the NFL. I figured I'd try something different where I can actually show the scores on the screen, so this way you can actually follow along instead of just me blurting out the scores and their records. As you can see, they show the scores and the records, so this is almost a bonus and a win for me. So there was all 32 teams were in action. There were no buys. I think the buys start in week number 5. So heading into week number 4, my predictions, I had 34 correct and 13 incorrect. I'll put it this way: week number 4 humbled me to say the least. I did not do that well, but again, when I made my predictions, I was feeling a little bold to say the least. So we'll start in New York as the New York Football Giants played host to a very familiar foe in the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys were coming into this matchup losing 2 straight games. They were looking to get back in the win column. I did predict that they would win, and they sure did. 20-15 would be the final score. They have now evened up their record at 2 wins and 2 losses. As for the Giants, they are now 1-3. Next matchup took place in Atlanta, where we had yet another divisional matchup as the Falcons played host to the New Orleans Saints. I did predict that New Orleans would get this one, and they lost by a hair, 26-24. Both these teams are now sitting at 2-2. The Carolina Panthers, coming off their first win of the season in week number 3, were playing host to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention in the preview was Andy Dalton was the starting quarterback in this game, and obviously he was drafted by the Bengals, and he spent a good tenure of his NFL tour in Cincinnati. So I'm sure he was looking to have a little bit of revenge on his mind. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be, as the Bengals finally showed up. It just took them 4 weeks. 34-24 would be the final score. Both these teams are now sitting at 1-3. The next matchup took place in Chicago as we had the Chicago Bears playing host to the Los Angeles Rams. I did predict that LA would get the win in this one. However, it was not meant to be. They lost by 6 points. 24-18 would be the final score. Chicago has now evened up their record at 2-2, while the Rams have dropped to 1-3. The next matchup took place in Green Bay as the Packers played host to the Minnesota Vikings. I did predict that Minnesota would get this one. They had a massive lead in the first half, and Green Bay almost pulled this one off, but unfortunately they just fell short. 31-29 would be the final score. Minnesota is still perfect on the season. They're sitting at 4-0, and after the loss, the Packers are back to 500. They're sitting at 2-2. The Houston Texans played host to the Jacksonville Jaguars. After coming off a week 3 loss, the Texans were hoping to bounce back in week number 4, and they sure did. 24-20 would be the final score. The Texans are sitting at 3-1, while the Jaguars are still winless on the season. They're 0-4. The Indianapolis Colts played host to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was fooled, to say the least, as I did predict Pittsburgh would win. They did not. 27-24 would be the final score. The Colts evened up their record at 2-2, thanks to Joe Flacco, and the Steelers suffered their first loss of the season. They're still first in the AFC North, so there's really no need to panic. They're sitting at 3-1. The next matchup took place in New York as the Jets played host to the Denver Broncos. I did predict that the Jets would get the victory in this one, and this one was a snooze fest, to say the least. 10-9, just 1 touchdown to report, and 2 missed field goals by both teams at the end of the game, which could have either extended the lead for the Broncos or could have won it for the Jets. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be. And if you had told me at the before the game started that the Jets would only have 3 field goals, I would have thought you were crazy, considering the 2 wins that they did have. They actually looked legit. But Denver's D is no joke. I'll just say this before I continue with my review. The Denver's always had a very good defense. It's just been their offense that they've been struggling with. And they got lucky that they got this victory. And I'll put it this way, that there's no way you're going to go into any game where your quarterback throws for less than 100 yards and you get a victory. Just goes to show how defensively strong both these teams really were. So with the win, both the teams are now sitting at 2-2. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers played host to the Philadelphia Eagles. I was a little bold on this one, just like with a lot of my picks that went wrong. I thought Philly would have got the victory in this one. They got blown out. 33-16 would be the final score. The Buccaneers have now improved to 3-1, while the Eagles are back to 500. They're sitting at 2-2. The Arizona Cardinals played host to the Washington Commanders. I did predict that Washington would win. I didn't think it would be a blowout, but 42-14 would be the final score. The Commanders now sitting at 3-1, while the Cardinals are 1-3. Alrighty, off to San Fran as the 49ers played host to the New England Patriots. I did predict that San Fran would get the win in this one, and they needed this. 30-13 would be the final score. They have evened up their record at 2-2. As for the Patriots, they're now 1-3. One thing I read yesterday is how Christian McCaffrey was getting something looked at. I believe it was his ankle, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to just double check and see what the injury is. I'm pretty sure I saved the picture somewhere. Yeah, so Christian McCaffrey is dealing with an Achilles tendonitis in both of his legs. And obviously, if you're a running back, if you play any position in football, you need your legs, but especially the running back, because obviously they run more than anybody, but quite often, I guess. But if he has both of his legs and they both have tendonitis in them, there's a very good chance that he could be done for the season, which is a shame because obviously I'm sure he was hoping to get back into the lineup and help the 49ers get back into the playoffs and possibly a Super Bowl appearance. But injuries, especially nowadays, they take it very serious. Doesn't matter if it's a sprain, whatever it is, they are like extra cautious nowadays when it comes to the medical staff. So I can't imagine they're in any rush to get him back on the field. And again, if he's even ready to play, that will be the big question moving forward. So if he is out for a long period of time, possibly the season, do the 49ers go and try to get a free agent or do a trade with another team to get another running back? Only time will tell, but either way, they still got the victory, which is what they needed very badly. Alrighty, off to the AFC West as the Los Angeles Chargers played host to the Kansas City Chiefs. I did predict that KC would win this one, and they're looking unbeatable at this point. 17-10 was the final score. They're still perfect on the season. They're sitting at 4-0, while the Chargers are 2-2. The Las Vegas Raiders played host to the Cleveland Browns. I did predict that Cleveland would get the win. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be. 20-16 would be the final score. The Raiders have evened up their record at 2-2, while the Browns have dropped to 1-3. The Sunday night matchup took place in Baltimore as the Ravens played host to the Bills. Just because the Bills were so dominant and because the Ravens had such a poor start to the season, I thought that Buffalo could have possibly went into Baltimore and got the victory. They got spanked. 35-10 would be the final score. The Ravens have evened up their record at 2-2. After losing the first two games, they've now won 2 straight. And for the Bills, they suffered their first loss of the season. No need to panic, but still, it was a blowout loss nonetheless. And the 2 Monday night matchups took place in Miami. Well, one took place in Miami, I should say, as the Dolphins played host to the Tennessee Titans. Just because Tua is out, it's hard for me to really predict that Miami is going to be successful moving forward, and it definitely goes to show they lost 31-12. For the Titans, that was their first win of the season, and for both of these teams, they have identical records. They're both 1-3. And the final matchup from Monday took place in Detroit as the Lions played host to the then undefeated Seattle Seahawks. Detroit would win. I did predict that Detroit would win 42-29. Both these teams are now sitting at 3-1. So thankfully, I got the Monday night games right. Otherwise, I would have been below 500 for my Week 4 predictions. I finished with 8 correct and 8 incorrect. So my overall record after 4 weeks is now 43-21. So I'm still 22 games above 500. I really can't complain, but maybe moving forward, I should make some smarter predictions rather than trying to be a little bold. Alrighty, that takes care of my recap for week number 4. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, take care.